Alright guys, this is TJ with Phoenix Synthetics. So we've got a 2015 Toyota 4Runner Trail Edition, and so it's going to be a little bit different than the SR5. I don't believe the SR5 has the same exact skid plate, or it might not have one at all. So really all you need to take these off is a 10mm socket and a 12mm socket. There are a handful of bolts, and then there is one pop rivet that you're going to take off with a flat blade screwdriver. You're gonna have to take this piece off first, and that's gonna be right up here in the front. And then the actual metal skid plate is gonna be in the back, and it's actually gonna be kind of pieced in on the little retaining areas right here. You're gonna have to kind of get in an angle and pull it off. So now we're gonna go ahead and move underneath the car here. I believe there are two more bolts that are gonna be holding on the kind of little cover area of where the oil drain plug is at. They are 12mm bolts. There's one. One more on the other side. And be careful, because once this bolt comes out, it is going to come falling down. So just hold it with your forearm or your wrist or something like that. Just go ahead and toss it off to a side. And that is going to give us access to our drain bolt, which is going to be a 14mm, I believe, but we'll find out here in 1 second. And it is. Luckily, it's aimed straight down, so once you pop it loose, it's pretty much good to go at that point. It's a little tight for comfort there, so I'm going to put on a little bit of a extension. We're gonna get it a little bit loose here, and then I'm gonna move the drain pan underneath it. Some of these are gonna be super tight from the factory, and sometimes dealerships just like to make them tight as well. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that out. Now that it's loose, I can do it finger tight, or loosen it with my hand instead of the socket. That way when the oil starts to flow out, you can catch the drain plug, and just like that. I would advise you to wear some gloves if you don't want to get dirty. However, this is the second oil change of the day, and so my hands are already pretty dirty. So we're going to go ahead and let this flow out here until it's kind of barely dripping, and then we're going to go ahead and pop the drain plug back in and then take care of the oil filter. Alright, so the oil's pretty much all finished, done draining here. One thing to remember is if the gasket for the oil drain plug is attached to it, go ahead and try to use your fingernail. Don't use a screwdriver or something like that. You don't want to gouge your oil pan. It's aluminum, and that would just be no good if you put a screwdriver through the bottom of it. You can purchase these at a Toyota dealership. The owner of this car bought 10 of them from them, and they knocked the price down to like 99 cents a piece. Don't skimp on it. Get a new one. Pop it in there. That way you don't have any leaks or anything. So it just slides down like that. We're just gonna pop this in. We're gonna go finger tight, and then we're just gonna snug it up a little bit with that 3/8 drive. No need to go crazy. You don't need to gorilla grip this thing on there. So that's that, and then we're gonna move over here. We actually go over to the oil filter. Is we need to put this cover back on. So you're actually just gonna pop it in place. Get your arm around everything up in here. We're just gonna put these. Since this is a aluminum back, I'm not too worried about going finger tight on these, just because we can use the wrench. We're not gonna ruin anything. Grab your 3/8 drive, 12mm socket, and just snug it up. All right, there we go. Now we're gonna move over to the oil filter. All right, so here is the oil filter housing. It is gonna be a cartridge style compared to the canister spin-on that a lot of people are used to. So you have two different things in here. You have the center cap, which is a 3/8 open box removal. So when you pull this out, it's gonna drain whatever's in this oil filter housing right here. That way when you go to pull the entire cap off, it's not gonna spew oil all over you. So all we're gonna do here is you're just gonna insert that box end in. We're gonna loosen it up. Once I can get my wrench to go the correct way. There we go. There we go. Now once it's like this, just take that little extension off, pop that box end in, and we're just gonna start pulling it out. And it may leak out a little bit, may leak out a lot, just kind of depends on the oil housing here. But they do make a little drain plug that you can pop in, and once you pop this in, it is going to get the rest of it out. Some of these can be a little bit of a pain to get in. There we go. You're just gonna let that drain. The longer the better, that way when you go to pull it out, like I said, oil doesn't go all over your face and all over your driveway and pretty much everywhere oil likes to go when it does spill. This would be a good time as well to look for any leaks or anything you have. This is a fairly new vehicle, so I wouldn't expect any leaks. Be a good time to inspect like your shocks, your bushings, things like that. All these look, like I said, fairly good just because they're pretty much brand new. Go ahead. All right, so now that it's done draining, we went ahead and pulled off the that little white funnel spout that pops in there. It's held in with an O-ring, so don't be afraid to give it a little love and yank it out. So we're just gonna pop this back in. Make sure you don't cross thread this thing, so go slow. We're not in a rush here.
You don't have to tighten it because you're actually gonna put an O-ring back in there.
And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make sure this is the correct filter housing for this, which it is. And then this is going to use that box end wrench as well. So we're gonna use a little extension here with the help of my wonderful assistant, Vanna White over here. There we go. And it is gonna be pretty snug on there. Here you can just pretty much spin it out by hand. Alright, and inside is going to be this cartridge filter, which you are going to take out. Make sure you empty out all this old oil that's in here. Now on here, as well as the little metal piece that we pulled out to drain the first little bit, there's going to be two different O-rings. One of them is going to be right here, which is going to be kind of hard to see. You can try to get it with your finger if you can. That would be ideal. But if you can, if you have some kind of like a dental pick that works, I would try to refrain from using a screwdriver just because a flat blade can possibly ruin it if you jab it too hard. So in the new filter kit, it is going to have the new filter, the new O-rings, and so we're going to go ahead and replace those. So this is literally just going to push straight in. And you want to push down and make sure it's seated in there. You'll know it's seated just kind of by feel, but don't be afraid to give it a little bit of love right there. And then we're actually going to go ahead and set this off to a side while we open up this new O-ring. And then you can use a little bit of the used oil to kind of lube it up. Really, it's not going to matter if you're using the old stuff or the new stuff. Just something to kind of seat it to the housing here. So you're going to go ahead and slide it down over top. Make sure it gets all the way down in that groove that it's supposed to be in and doesn't go into the threads. Otherwise, this thing is not going to seat back to the surface. You're just going to take it, we're going to pop it straight back up in there. We're going to go hand tight as much as we can because this is a plastic housing. So you don't want to potentially ruin this thing. Alright, so we're pretty much snug right here as far as hand goes. So now we're going to take our extension that we had, our 3/8 drive, and on this, much like the oil cap, we're not going to go crazy on it. There is an O-ring to seat on there, and so there's no need to go terribly insane. Don't forget, we need to change out this other O-ring that's in here. So we're going to remove this real quick. So that new O-ring is just going to go right around this gold metal piece right here. You're just going to pop it into place, and then we're going to take this. And typically it's a lot easier in this, however my hands are coated in oil, so it is not the easiest thing to turn. Go ahead and grab your ratchet. We're just gonna snug this up just a little bit. There you go. You're just gonna know when it stops because it won't turn anymore and you don't need to snug it up any more than that. So now we're gonna go ahead and go up top. We're going to fill it up with oil, and then we're gonna start it up and check for leaks before we put this skid plate back on, because we won't know if there's any leaks from the housing or anything until we actually start it up. Okay, so now that we're up top, this engine calls for 0W20. There's some debate between 6.5 and 6.6 quarts. We'll start at 6.5, and then if we have to, we'll add in an extra 1/10 of a quart. So we've got our funnel here, and we're just gonna go and start pouring them on in. Total side note while we're doing this, one thing I get asked all the time is, you know, I went a couple 100 miles over my oil change. Is that going to be detrimental to my car? No, it's not going to be detrimental to your car. However, if you find yourself going, you know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles over your oil change, you're going to start to build up sludge. So don't skimp on your oil changes. Definitely keep up on them. Otherwise, you will pay for it in the long run. So this is the 6 quart we're pouring in now. And then on that next one, we need to pay attention to the level on the side of the bottle. Make sure we're pouring in half of it. another 2 or 3 ounces here. Boom, right there. We're gonna go ahead and store this off to a side. Make sure all that oil that we poured in the funnel makes its way down into the engine. Give it a little tap, that way we're not dumping oil all over the place. And we are gonna go ahead and replace the cap. And then we're gonna go ahead and start it up and check for any leaks that there might be. Sounds or anything like that, shut it off. It's not normal. So yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and go underneath here, make sure there's not any leaks or anything. I don't see any leaks, so it looks like we're good to go.